Good evening, Wabash. Throughout her more than 20-year career, Dr. Allison Briscoe-Smith has combined teaching, advocacy, and engagement in a variety of roles, including clinical psychologist, professor, researcher, trainer, and consultant. A thread that runs through Dr. Briscoe-Smith's work is how do we connect with one another, respecting and celebrating our experiences and differences while building authentic community. And this thread is something that makes her interest in learning and building similar to many students, faculty, staff, and friends here at Wabash College. She has consulted and trained for companies like Netflix, Nickelodeon, and YouTube, multiple colleges and universities, and a whole host of nonprofit organizations that if I started listing them off, we would be here for a long time. As a senior fellow at the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley, Dr. Briscoe-Smith focuses on the science of belonging and building bridges across differences. She is also a senior fellow at Resetting the Table, which is an organization that works to address divides through dialogue, stories, and connection. And she is currently, I know, are you keeping track? It's a lot. She is currently a lead in the Division of Student Life at the University of Washington and a trainer for the Constructive Dialogue Institute. Okay, that is just a bit of the resume, but I am fortunate to know Dr. Briscoe-Smith as a colleague and a friend. And what I can say to you, Wabash, is that she is an energetic collaborator. She is an innovator who looks for new solutions to the problems that keep coming up and we need to solve. And she is possibly one of the best listeners I have ever met in my life. From our first meeting, Dr. Briscoe-Smith is someone whose remarks, whose questions had me thinking critically about how I might lead and act and live. And tonight, she joins our Wabash community for her talk on belonging and brotherhood, why belonging matters to mental health and what to do about it. So Wabash, please join me in welcoming Dr. Allison Briscoe-Smith.
Hello. Thank you so much. Is it on? Can y'all hear me? Is that working? Good evening. I am so blessed to be here, and thank you for the warm welcome and for all the folks that have taken their time to show me around the buildings, to get me kind of acclimated to Indiana. I'm from Hawaii, so this is very different. And I'm really eager to be with you all tonight. So as Dr. Meltrotter mentioned and talked about, I have this wonderful opportunity to connect with folks all across our nation, with folks who are really interested in learning about connection and addressing our divides. But really, honestly, I'm a child psychologist. I'm a kid therapist. And a lot of what I have to kind of offer is, basically for that kind of child within us all. So I'm really excited to get a chance to learn from you tonight. So I want to set some of the expectations. I'm not going to do all the talking tonight. You all are actually going to get a chance to talk with each other. There's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of you turning and talking. So if you don't like the person you're next to, here's a chance to move. We are going to be kind of learning with each other. We've got mics around. There's going to be shout outs. But this is going to be a chance where I want to get a chance to hear from you all as we do things. Okay? Is that an okay invitation? Okay. So just a couple of things about what I hope for us to be able to do today. We're going to talk about this idea of belonging and connection and why it's important and why it might be important for you all, or as I have heard from many of you all, that it is important. Then we're going to talk about some of the kind of nerdy, geeky science behind this, some of the social psychology around what supports connection, and actually what gets us to not connect. And then we're going to think together about what we could actually do about it, and then you're all going to get homework. You're going to have an opportunity to actually get a chance to kind of do something about it. So that's where we're going to kind of go. But in order for us to start, we're going to begin with an activity. So I'm going to need a couple of people to help me out. I need help passing these out to everybody. Can I get 4 volunteers? I also need folks to pass out pens as well. So everyone's going to get one of these, and I'm going to encourage you to not get started until I tell you to do so. If possible, if we could have the house lights come up a little bit, that'd be great. If not, y'all can see, you're young. So as this passes out, I want to give you the instructions. We're going to go ahead and engage in a little bit of an exercise, and it's bingo, okay? So the rules are listed there. And what you're going to need to do is find another person that fills the square. Here are a couple of the caveats. You cannot sign the square for yourself. You cannot have one person sign multiple times, right? And in order to win, it's blackout bingo. You got to fill up all the things. Blackout, you know about blackout bingo? We know about blackout. So we're gonna fill it up. So when the folks in the back get it, if you can get your hands up, so when everybody in the back has it. So again, the rules are only one person can sign it. You can't sign it for yourself. We only have 5 minutes to do it, so the expectation is that we are going to be in movement. Okay? Everybody have it in the back? Almost, almost. All right, are we ready? Folks in the back, are we ready? Yeah. None. You choose. Okay. Everybody ready? I can't quite tell. Is everybody ready? If you are ready, stand on up. You have 5 minutes. Whoever gets blackout comes to me first. Jen, can I grab one sheet? Hi, how are you doing?
My name is Jordan. I met you online.
Yes, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
All right, what can we do?
Let's see. Someone you have not met before. I've met you.
But not in person. We don't count that.
All right, thank you. You want me to sign one of yours as well?
No, I already went.
All right.
Nice to meet you in person. You have 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left. Are you done? You wrapped up? You got bingo?
Yeah.
Blackout?
Where's blackout?
Blackout means everybody. You have 1 more minute. 1 more minute. There you go. Extra points, extra points. Y'all getting close? Y'all getting close?
The whole thing?
Yeah.
No, late start.
That's all right. That's all right. All right. If you can hear the sound of my voice, clap once. If you can hear the sound of my voice, clap twice. If you can hear the sound of my voice, go on back to your seat. Don't worry, if you can fill this out afterwards and give it to Dr. Mel Treader, you'll get a prize. Okay? All right. So thank you all for giving that a try. Let me ask a couple of different things as we all kind of come on back. So, how many of you met someone that you hadn't met before? How many of you learned something new about someone you already knew? Some? Okay, a little bit. Right? So, this is a simple way for us to think about the many different ways that we actually might be connected. A simple way for us to think about asking questions of each other that maybe we haven't asked before. Maybe for us to kind of connect with someone new, right? And we do this kind of thing because hopefully it's fun. And also we do this so we can actually do the work of kind of connection right here. So again, someone met someone new here. So my invitation for you is if you met someone new here, maybe in the next week, just say hi. Not a big ask, but just say hi. So why do we spend a lot of time kind of thinking about how we might be connected? It's because we currently have a crisis of connection. And we can talk about it in a number of different ways. And in fact, you all can tell me a lot about it as well. Assuming this will work. Which is, we have a crisis of connection right now, which shows up in a couple of different ways. One of which is we recently had our Surgeon General of the entire nation do a report on our disconnection. It was so serious and was showing up as such an issue in terms of our health that it shows up in a couple different ways. That actually what we find is that people who report that they have low social connection, it is as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Being disconnected is as bad for your health. Approximately half of United States Americans report feeling disconnected and lonely. And only 16% of Americans feel like they are very attached to their community. But when we look specifically at men, this crisis is even worse. So we actually hear and learn that young men are most affected by this crisis of being alone, and 1 in 4 males aged 15 to 34 feel lonely a lot of the day. This is actually a significant increase over time, and a significantly higher amount than young women and peers in other wealthy countries. We actually find that for men in particular, friendships are declining. That 15% of men report having no close friends. And in terms of college students, this kind of piece shows up, that 64.7% of college students report feeling lonely. I want to call out a couple different things about this, which is that we've been taking stock of people's experiences of loneliness, and we have every indicator that these things are on the increase. And that this is also, again, showing up in terms of not only our connections, but our health. I'm really curious from you all as to whether or not this resonates with your own kind of experiences. And also, I would love to hear some of the thoughts that you have about why. So we have a couple of runners with mics, but you can also shout it out and repeat. Just 2 or 3 ideas. Why do you think this is happening? What's going on? Lack of what? Lack of third spaces. A lack of opportunity for us to have spaces to connect that are outside work or outside school. We can think about that in terms of our physical plant. Where do we have the spaces actually to kind of connect? Lack of third spaces. We also are finding within the research that we have declining civic engagement. There was a book done a long time ago, people can tell me the author, but Bowling for One. The idea that we used to be able to have teams and other kinds of things, other civic engagement, those places are declining. Thank you. What else is contributing to loneliness? Yes?
Maybe social media and the lack of face-to-face connection and talking being used to on the phone.
Yeah, so let me see if I got it right. Social media, lack of kind of face-to-face kind of connection, maybe even lack of talking to folks on the phone, getting used to that. How many people here feel like social media negatively impacts connection? If you take a look, that's everybody, right? A lot of folks are feeling there's a potential for it to help in social connection, but we've got lots of experience that it actually might be tanking and getting us further and further away. One last kind of thing. What else do you think is contributing to this kind of loneliness? One last one. Yes, a hand in the back. Yeah. There's a mic coming to you right there. The stigma placed on mental health. So the ability, do we even have the space to talk about that I'm feeling lonely or that I can get kind of help? The stigma that actually makes sure that we feel bad about it even worse, and that creates a vicious cycle. So all of the things that you're talking about are contributors to this factor. And we know it doesn't feel good. And we also know that it actually impacts our health, our mental health, our wellness, and it's actually impacting our society as well. This distance, this lack of engagement with the structure that actually brings us together is showing up in things like toxic polarization. It shows up in things like disengagement from civic life, lack of voting, lack of charitable giving. So I should have mentioned up front that I'm a trauma therapist, so it's going to get pretty depressing. But we are going to turn it back around, okay? So this is some of the kind of negatives, again, that you all have kind of told me about. So it raises the issue then about maybe we should be focusing on belonging. So we want to talk a little bit about belonging. My invitation to you is I'd actually like you to turn to a peer, person next to you. What does belonging feel like? Turn to the person next to you. What does belonging feel like? What does it mean to you? Just about 30 more seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and interrupt the conversations So you've had to talk a little bit about what belonging kind of feels like. Again, popcorn out, just tell me a little bit, what does belonging feel like, or what does it mean to you? See a hand right there.
To me, it means being yourself and not having to pretend to be another person.
To be yourself and not having to pretend to be another person. To be fully authentic. The definition that you hit upon, I'm going to hear some others as well, is actually one that the author Brene Brown talks about. The idea that belonging is not needing to constrain yourself or to hide parts of yourself, to be fully authentic. Thank you. I saw another hand. Yes, sir. Having trust and being able to be vulnerable, to have a space to be kind of safe. That vulnerability can also mean I can make a mistake. I can show up fully in that place. Thank you, Evan. Yes. Ah, what a beautiful way of thinking about it. A space where that vulnerability is reciprocated, right? One of the tricks of what we did here is that you had to fill it out for each other, right? One of the asks is that, hopefully you all sign something inside. It's a reciprocal kind of relationship. So that vulnerability is reciprocated, and that also helps us with the trust as well. Thank you. Other thoughts about what belonging means or could mean or feels like? One more. Yes. Yeah. Being in a space where you don't feel like the odd man out, right? So we know what belonging feels like. It's an automatic kind of feeling, and we are always assessing it and thinking about it. In fact, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the thing that articulates that we need food, we need shelter, the foundation of that is actually we need belonging. We need that kind of space for kind of connection. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about the kind of research that kind of shows up here. And the ways that we kind of think about defining it from kind of a scientific perspective. So I'm going to rely a lot upon a couple of theorists' work, and two of which are Walton and Cohen. And Jeffrey Cohen is something I'm going to talk about a lot. They basically say that whenever we enter into spaces, we ask ourselves these questions, which is, do I belong here? Do I have anything in common with the people here? Can I be me here? That these are the questions that we're probably asking as we enter into spaces. And we might be looking for those indicators in 1,000 different ways. Okay, but that's a very common kind of thing as we enter into spaces. And our feeling of kind of security are often determined by the answer to those. So I want to give another kind of definition. So I was trained at the University of California, San Francisco. And they have a definition there about belonging. It's a long and it's a wordy one, but stick with me. Belonging is an individual internal experience, a sense of oneself in relation to a community, organization, or institution. An individual's sense of belonging is supported by the demonstration of inclusion, from being acknowledged when passing in hallways to seeing one's image reflected in marketing and tangible opportunities for everyone to participate and contribute. I love this definition because it actually talks about what our institutions can do. It's not just within me. It's that I am greeted when I am walking through spaces and I am seen. It is that I am represented and I can see myself in those kinds of places. That I actually have a tangible opportunity to contribute and to participate because I am valued. So these are some of the ways that we can think about belonging and why it might really be important. So let's talk a little bit more about why belonging and why it might be kind of important. So we have tons of research that belonging is impactful in a number of different spaces. One of which, and it's not a surprise to us, that our sense of belonging is directly related to our mental health. Our sense that we are connected, that we can be vulnerable, and that vulnerability is reciprocated, that I can be my full self, that I can be safe and vulnerable. It's also directly related to academic achievement, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. It also has a connection to health and life and work satisfaction. So again, I had a mentor once that talked about a lot of the science that I do is well-duh science. But it's the science of like, yes, we know that, right? That we can go ahead and establish that this is kind of true. So let's take you through health, for example. So there is a ton of work that's actually going on in the state of Colorado where I have an opportunity to work on a belonging project. We have a 10-year grant to transform the state of Colorado into a state of belonging. So we're doing that by investing in nonprofits, in parks, in sports teams, in radios. But one of the things that they did before is that they had this belonging barometer. They actually did an assessment of what belonging feels like and what it means. And what they found within this were a couple of different things. That those that experience higher rates of belonging experience less stress. They weren't as stressed out by things, okay? A couple of different more that show up here, including. So, not surprising, those that had higher experiences of belonging had higher life satisfaction. But here's another one. Those that had higher experiences of belonging had better general health. There's another kind of caveat to this. Those that had higher experiences of belonging experienced less pain in medical procedures. The ratings of pain were lower in medical procedures, okay? So it shows up again and again in these ways. So now I want to tell you about how this translates and where a lot of this kind of research comes from, again, from Jeffrey Cohen, who does work at Stanford. But I want to back up a little bit, because sometimes we talk about researchers as if they're just these single minds, not impacted by folks around them. But I want to kind of set the stage a little bit about where he works. So he works at Stanford, and he worked in the psychology department, and he is surrounded by a couple of main minds and theorists in the space. So he had a chance to work with Jennifer Eberhardt. Jennifer Eberhardt is a MacArthur Genius Award winner who does a lot of work on implicit bias, about like the automatic assumptions that we have and how those kind of show up. He's also working with Carol Dweck, who comes up with growth mindset. Anyone heard of growth mindset? Yeah, so growth mindset, the idea that we can grow and learn and that nothing is a fixed kind of trait, there's that. And then he also works with, and I'm having a perimenopausal moment, and I'm going to forget it, but y'all can help me, Claude Steele. He works with Claude Steele, who wrote Whistling Vivaldi. Anyone heard about Claude Steele and his work? So he does this kind of work, Whistling Vivaldi, and is the idea that we have stereotype threat, that we have stereotypes that are in the air around us, and they get invoked in particular times. So he's actually working in this time in a space where he's learning that, that how people make sense of the world around them is impacted by their assumptions. He's also working with folks that are helping him think about that actually we can learn and grow, and it's not a fixed kind of thing, that we can grow over time. So he takes on, as does his lab, trying to address a pretty persistent problem that was happening at Stanford at the time, which is that black students had a gap in their achievement at Stanford at the time. So he wanted to figure out what he could do to address it. So he went ahead with his colleagues. They went ahead and they gave intervention to black students as they were entering into Stanford on belonging, to help with belonging. So he did this intervention, and then 4 years later followed them up. So the students that he intervened upon actually turned out to have higher GPAs and were more likely to graduate. Then he followed up with those same students 7 years later, and those students who had the belonging intervention were more engaged in their job and had better life satisfaction. So he provided an intervention in 1 week in freshman year that lasted 11 years. Okay? Does anyone know what that intervention was? The intervention was a 1-hour intervention. And what happened was that he brought black students, and had them read letters ostensibly written by older black students that told them 3 things. It told him that challenges to belonging are normal, they are temporary, and it ain't about you. That when students got to read that kind of experience, it changed the way that they viewed the rest of their experiences throughout college. So I'm going to give you a kind of example. I don't know if it's the same like this at Wabash, but this is the example that was here, which is that many of the beds in colleges are longer than regular beds. Is it like that here at Wabash? Yeah, sometimes. So what ended up happening is that a black student is coming to Stanford for the first time, is feeling all kinds of pressure. Am I supposed to be here? Feeling imposter syndrome, all of that. Shows up and gets there, and the sheets that he has from home don't even fit on the bed. And he takes that as a sign, I don't even belong here. Until someone comes up and tells him, look, none of the sheets fit here. It's a longer, better sheet, something different. And so he tells this kind of story, realizing that the challenges to his transition, they're normal. We're supposed to experience some challenges as we get into spaces. It's not going to last forever. He bought regular size sheets, right? It's not going to last forever, and it's not about you. It wasn't that he didn't belong there. It was a challenge to belonging that happened. Does that make sense? So this little kind of piece, this kind of information, what they said, it served as a lens by which these students negotiated the rest of their college experience, that they didn't internalize I am bad, I am wrong, I don't belong here. But rather, challenges to belonging are normal. This is not gonna last, and it's not about me. That kind of intervention that's kind of done, it's called a wise intervention in part because it happens once at a particular time, and then it magnifies kind of over time. Because he actually did work with these students and found out these students were not less likely to be impacted by racism. But the lens by which they made sense of that was not internalized. Okay? So I'm gonna invite you to just take a moment, because I just gave you a whole lot, to turn to a partner and ask each other some questions about it or see if that kind of makes sense. So turn to each other, and then we'll get a chance to kind of ask about it. So turn to each other, what makes sense? What questions do you have about it? You know, it's actually working. What's happening is I'm having, the Wi-Fi keeps on coming up. So I have to keep on doing this. The clicker works. It's totally fine. That's good. It's working. I'm getting my steps. It doesn't like edge around, but it's fine. Yeah. All right, just 30 more seconds. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and interrupt these kind of conversations and just see how this is making sense. So are there any initial kinds of questions that are kind of coming up, or places that this makes sense, or thoughts about the data? Questions, thoughts, ideas? Want to argue with it? I see a question way in the back. If someone can get that person a mic.
Was this study controlled specifically for Stanford? Did it like happen in other colleges across income levels, ethnicities, so on and so forth?
Great question. Was this only at Stanford? This has been a study that has been replicated quite broadly across multiple national samples. It's also been done not only in college, but in K through 12 settings, mostly with middle school. So it's been replicated in a lot of the kind of settings. I hear you kind of mentioned that have different kind of financial status, different other kinds of places as well. And this has been done so often that they've actually now moved this into kind of a standardized intervention that can be used in other places. But does that answer your question?
Does this basically work around forming group identity?
Tell me a little bit more. Work around group identity.
Are students being made to think about themselves as Stanford students instead of their individual origins?
That's a great question. This is not one that's invoking an identity. It's rather invoking a context. That when I enter into a context where I feel like I don't belong, it is temporary, it is normal, it's not gonna last, and it's not about me. So it's not required to invoke a group identity or participation in a particular identity. This one was focused on race and a racialized identity, but it's actually been used in multiple different kinds of spaces without a need to kind of focus on a particular identity. But these are great questions. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I see a question here.
I was asking about the challenges to belonging are normal, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Stanford is not, it's quite a white school.
Yeah, it's
right?
a predominantly
No
white
offense.
institution. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Ivy League, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just saying that challenges of belonging are normal, but are the students ever given context on like, you know, sometimes these people are just not gonna like you,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So,
Instead
I mean, there's
of-
a lot of different ways that we can think about challenges to belonging.
Instead of saying
normal.
that like, you know, oh, everyone's different and we're all gonna come together. Some people are just never gonna like you and that's the way things are.
So that it allows the space for us to kind of think about that. If you think about that way you talked about it, that means I don't have to internalize that I'm wrong or try to be different.
Okay.
So you provided me a way to kind of think about, it's not about me, right?
Yeah.
So the problem ends up happening when it's about me. Then I have to change and constrain myself in ways that maybe I can't.
So to not personalize hate.
Not personalize it, right? So a lens by which, now it doesn't mean that we should assume everybody treating you badly is normal, right? So that's not the invitation either. But for us to kind of think about challenges, like when I enter into a new space, it should feel a little awkward to kind of normalize my discomfort in that kind of space. Other questions or thoughts? Yeah, I see a hand right there. I'm making everybody run. Thank you.
So if we stick with the same college context, what changes if we change the writer, right? If the identities don't match between the writer and the reader, what changes?
So it depends. Actually, not a whole lot. So it is important if it becomes salient, the racial identity in this part becomes salient because we've identified race as what connects these folks. This has been done outside of just race. So this could be done, I'm a first-generation student. This could be done as I'm a student that struggles with anxiety. This could be done in a lot of different places. So the identity is one that can be malleable or change. So, but the idea is that it should be some type of place that we can kind of connect with our identity.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and so this has been used specifically around things like orientation or first-year programs. And this, we can also think about what ends up happening and there was a next kind of extension, which is that the students who receive this intervention were then asked at the end of their time to write a letter to incoming students about what they would tell people to anticipate and think about. And that kind of forming and thinking about writing a letter also included stories that challenges to belonging are normal, they are temporary, and that it's not about you. So there are lots of places that this can be used. So if belonging is so important and so great and so self-evident, why doesn't it happen all the time? So what are some of the barriers that you can think of? Again, popcorn style, and I'll yell it out, people don't have to yell. What are some of the barriers to belonging? What gets in the way of belonging? What makes people not feel like they don't belong? Yes? Differences, right? Differences that show up, perceived differences. Exactly. What else shows up? Yes? Miscommunication. So are we really even understanding each other? Yes. What's another one? I saw another hand go up almost. Yes?
I'll say
Ego. How do I feel about it? Yes. Yeah? Different values. There are a number of these things. Yes? Caste systems. So are we placed in places of kind of hierarchy? How do we see each other? So there are a lot of these things that are actually kind of coming up that are threats. So bias, our perceptions and groups about others. This idea, are people familiar, the psych students, are fundamental attribution error? So fundamental attribution error we all do, which is the idea that we tend to think about other people's behavior as their state all the time, but we ourselves pay attention to our context. So for example, if I'm driving and someone cuts me off, I think that person is a jerk. But if I'm driving and I cut somebody off, I know that it's because my baby's crying in the back and I've got something else going on. I know the context. Does that make sense? So these are things that get challenging. Like, so I assume I see somebody kind of behaving a particular way, they're like that all the time, but I understand my context. So that gets in the way of feelings like of belonging as well. Also, kind of capacity and systems. Is it that we're supposed to belong everywhere all the time? So I think about it this way. I recently moved to Seattle, and I was new to the space. And they had an indoor mall. And I say indoor mall because I come from places that don't have indoor malls. And my kids were like, what is this magical place? So we're walking through the mall, and there's big signs everywhere saying, you belong. You belong. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to belong to Abercrombie and Fitch. Like, I don't know if it has become something that kind of shows up all the time, right? Without necessarily thinking about, do I even want to belong there? In fact, Jeffrey Cohen has this article called Stop Yelling You Belong at Everybody. And actually, we can't just rest on the you belong sticker. We have to actually demonstrate it. It has to be something that's authentic. There was nothing that happened in the mall that made me feel like I belong, except they wanted to take my money, right? So, to think about that this is something that has to kind of show up and be authentic. So that's the idea of all the time, everywhere. We often approach this idea around kind of belonging as if we don't get to choose our own belonging. As if you have to feel like you belong every place, everywhere, or it's the institution's responsibility to make belonging happen everywhere. We have our own responsibility to choose where I want to belong. We actually know that belonging can go really wrong. I was having a conversation at lunch at Spaces today. You know who's really, really good at belonging? Gangs. They capitalize upon our fear, right? They create particular identity. So we can create spaces of kind of belonging that go really, really wrong. So I want us to kind of think thoughtfully about, we have to have our own agency and decide where we want to belong. How do we construct kind of spaces that are meaningful and about kind of connection? So there are lots of kind of challenges here. There's also been a really big critique of this idea of this kind of intervention. This intervention that I talked about, as I mentioned, thanks to the gentleman's question in the back, has been used as an intervention across a number of different schools. The idea that Jeffrey Cohen talks about is that this intervention provides an umbrella to protect folks from the rain of unbelonging. Now, its idea, though, is that each person has to lift up their own umbrella. What if we actually created systems and porches and patios that people were protected from that as well? The idea that it's the individual person that has to be responsible for doing the thinking about, it's okay, I can remember, transitions are hard, it's not gonna last forever, I'm okay, puts all the responsibility on the person. And doesn't do the work that we did up front with UCSF's definition of actually having a system create belonging. So there's some critique and there's kind of some spaces there. And so now I want to kind of get to this other kind of piece, this other opportunity for you all to kind of talk with each other a little bit, which is you all, as I understand, are in a place of creating lots of brotherhood. And whether or not you do that through your groups or your spaces, you have the opportunity to kind of create this kind of connection. So you all have been working at connection and strategies for belonging, and I'm really curious as to what those strategies are. So please turn to your friend again. If you're tired of that person, you can turn the other way. It's okay. So go ahead. You're going to have 2 to 3 minutes to talk about what are your strategies. What are the things that you actually do that create belonging? Okay? What are your strategies? Just about 30 seconds. Okay, it's getting late and I want to get a chance to hear some of these ideas. So what are the strategies that you use to create belonging here? What are the things that you all do? Yes?
Being vulnerable with other people you're trying to encourage that people belong with.
So being vulnerable, but being vulnerable in the group of folks that I'm trying to create a sense of belonging in. That kind of reciprocity kind of idea. So trying that on yourself. Thank you. What else are people doing to create belonging? Yes? Yeah. So finding opportunities to actually work with each other. Creating a shared goal is one of the best ways of actually bringing folks together, especially in the context of across any differences, but also to create that sense of belonging. There was another hand. Yes? Mm-hmm. So creating a space that we can actually engage with each other, argue with each other, to have a space that actually supports us in being real is a way of creating that belonging. Yes, what else? Yes?
I'd say genuinely asking somebody if they're okay, like more than one time.
Mm-hmm.
Foster that connection.
Yeah. So we have to kind of come back and try it again, right? So the idea that we have to keep on kind of showing up to ask each other, how are you doing? And to foster that connection. Great. Other ways that you all see a hand in the back. Yes?
Me and Solo talked about how we're kind of like chameleons. There's like we'll base off of the criteria
Mm. So if I'm hearing it right, the idea that we can often be kind of chameleons, ourselves kind of changing. But I hear that change is an effort to actually bring the person out, to kind of hear and to understand as well. Am I getting that right? Yeah, so that ability to kind of, talk in those ways and to kind of provide that kind of support. I was talking to someone today, I'm not sure if they're here, but the idea that actually spending lots of time listening to really get to that understanding ends up kind of helping out. Other ways that you all are creating and supporting belonging. Yes?
Having conversations in good body language.
So a lot of the kind of stuff about like, am I providing an open kind of space for someone to talk to? Am I talking with someone? Am I giving and kind of receiving in the kind of conversation? Yes. 2 more I would need. Yes?
Like when I told you earlier, we're glad you're here. Letting someone know.
Yeah. So that's a way to create welcoming and belonging and to feel that authentically. We're glad that you're here, right? Awesome. Thank you. And yes?
Find someone that you connect with and then utilize their connections to find you belonging.
Yeah, so finding someone that you're connected with and using those kind of connections. I've heard that a lot here as some of the kind of in the midst of challenges, the ability to kind of connect with alumni, the other people who have had the kind of experiences. One of the kind of pieces that you're kind of tapping into and that it's really important for us to kind of think about is that these types of interventions that you're all providing, by the way, are evidence-based. They show up all the time. And they can be easy, short, and powerful. So sometimes people will kind of come to me because I'm helping an organization kind of create more belonging, and the thought is like, how hard is this going to be? How tough? It doesn't have to be hard or tough. It can be short, authentic, powerful, and meaningful. And it does have to be authentic. That goes back to like shouting to everybody that you belong. Doesn't quite work. It's got to be felt. So it just can't be the kind of title of the space. It actually has to be felt. Storytelling is incredibly important within this. So remember that the intervention that was done is that people read a letter, heard a story from somebody else that went through the experience. So hearing from other folks that have been through similar experiences, talking with each other, offering each other's stories, and I hear that in the vulnerability, is super powerful. So being able to tell and to offer those stories are the things that really help this happen. Okay? So these are things, many of which that you've kind of talked about. So before I make a little bit of space for kind of questions, I want to, challenge you all to think about, well, what are you going to do about it? That each of us are in a space that we can do something about belonging. And I also want to let you all, most of you all, students in this space, I'm having an opportunity to work with faculty and staff and administrators tomorrow to go through the same kind of piece and really work hard on articulating what folks are doing here to support belonging, but also what else they could do in addition. So again, I'll make some time for questions, but I want to kind of put up a resource. This is the homework that I kind of mentioned to you. Later on, after we get a chance to kind of do some questions, on your way out, there's going to be a piece of paper that asks you to do the following. And it's going to ask you to think about and invite you to think about your belonging moves. Okay? So what are the things that you have done to create belonging for others? Have you said hello or greeted someone by name today? Have you given that head nod? Have you given a dap? Have you said hello? Okay? Have you gotten curious and asked a question and listened deeply to someone? Have you gotten brave and reached out across differences or initiated connection? Have you noticed someone on the margins and actually reached out and connected? Have you noticed someone who's having a hard time? Have you shared a story of your experiences or invited someone else to share that story? Have you challenged a bias or an assumption in myself or others? Okay? And then what have you done to cultivate your own belonging? You already talked about this way up at the top, right? Which is about vulnerability and authenticity. Have I connected with someone who really gets me? Have I made that time to really get together with that person who really gets me? Have I brought my authentic self to a space? That takes courage, right? Have I asked for help or support? And have I brought and contributed my unique perspectives and gifts? So the invitation is to do this kind of inventory to kind of pay attention to the ways that we are kind of cultivating belonging for ourselves, and also to think, I have agency to create this for myself. I get to decide where I belong as well. So that's going to be the kind of resources that I'm going to go ahead and leave you with. But with all of that, I wanted to make a little bit of time and space for questions or thoughts or ideas or argument, pushback, resonance, dissonance. So we've got about 5 minutes for any kind of questions before I wrap us up. Questions or ideas? Yes, I see a hand over here.
Yeah, earlier in your slides, you touched on how belonging can even really improve health outcomes.
Yes.
So do you think that healthcare, like health professionals, emphasize belonging and other things of that nature as much as they should?
So the question, just so everyone can hear it, was that there was some of the slides up there about the impact of belonging in healthcare and whether or not I think healthcare is doing it enough. Is that right? So I get a chance to do a lot of consultation and support with healthcare organizations who are bringing this in and thinking about it because it is so impactful to health. Now, what does it mean to belong to healthcare? Right? I'm not living there. I'm not, what does it really mean? But the idea is, can I have a provider that I trust? Can I trust the system to know what I really need? But I want to tell you a story about why that kind of piece about saying hello, and I'm going to talk to folks later about this, is so important. So I work with a healthcare organization in rural Pacific Northwest. So it's in rural Alaska, Oregon, and Washington. And they brought me in to do same kind of workshop on belonging. And they were saying that we were really struggling with belonging. We just don't feel like we belong here, and we used to feel so connected. And this was right after kind of COVID, right after that kind of time. And so I was asking them, like, what do you feel like has changed? What do you feel like is going on? And they said, well, we don't say hello to each other anymore because we were in crisis and we're covered in PPE. So we stopped the ways that we used to greet each other. And we really think that that's hurting us. In fact, they had an example of a new person that was working there who was working there for a couple months, and then they gave their notice. And the supervisor asked, what's going on? You've been doing such a great job here. Things are going well. And the person said, well, I don't really feel like I'm doing a great job because no one greets me. No one knows my name. No one says hello. And so that kind of sense. So we actually decided, and it sounds kind of silly, but the group of nurses and providers and everyone decided that they were going to go ahead and start greeting each other. So it got really silly the next kind of week because everyone was like, hi, 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 hi. But actually, they made time to reconnect around that basic thing. There is substantial research that how we greet each other translates into our sense of belonging. Specific interventions in schools to reduce behavioral kind of negativity is by people greeting each other. Y'all ever see those kind of videos at the beginning of the school year where the teacher is greeting the little kid as they kind of come in, they have like a high five or whatever, things like that? Those things work. So long way of kind of saying, yes, I think healthcare could benefit more. We're often in this kind of space where we don't feel like that sense of belonging. But again, I am directly impacted by the data that shows the higher sense of belonging, the less pain reported on medical procedures. So lots of opportunity for us to do that. Yeah. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk about that. Exciting. Other thoughts or questions? Yes, I see a hand here.
What do you do about barriers that are out of our control? For example, like institutional barriers or like medical barriers or like political influence that like financiate. So for example, like certain groups don't get that much money and you feel like they don't belong in schools, or like the political world of like xenophobia increase. Like what do you do when there's things that we can't control? Like stuff like this still help with that, or
yeah. So yes and. Right? So does stuff like this help? Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the study. Nothing was changed about Stanford, and the students graduated more and did better. That's my critique as well. What if they actually changed? How much better could they have done if they actually had changed? So it's twofold. Do these things help and work in the individual? Yes, but do we need to keep on pushing for creating spaces of belonging at statewide and national levels? Sure. What can we do about it? I'm going to turn to y'all and kind of think about it. Like there are things that we can do. We can work within the hospital system to make sure there's a change. We could think about what does it take to create belonging. There's a ton of kind of funding and spaces around creating belonging, even in the context of things like xenophobia. So I think there's ways that we can get creative and support and kind of think through what we could kind of do. But this stuff works. But imagine if they actually changed the institution too. What could we have done? So the kind of a yes and. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions? Yes, Coach. Yeah. There's a lot of work. Thanks for pointing that out. We can think about how this shows up in many different places, that we probably have our own spaces where connection feels different. That actually, I would never go to my church and be on my phone. I better greet every elder that's there. There's a context and support there. And by the way, they're going to feed me later, right? So there's going to be all of that. I bet we can all kind of identify the cultural spaces that we have that support belonging in a particular way. And so I think that's a yes. And, we can also think about, we need to have spaces where we can be together, connect with each other, to support, to provide that. And that we have a lot of factors that have made us incurious. That what we had to do here is that you had to get curious about somebody. You had to ask. We've gotten incurious because we have been in a place where things are fearful. I'm afraid that I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm afraid that I'm going to offend somebody. I'm afraid that I'm going to be canceled. I'm afraid I'm going to be consequenced for this. That we have created systems that actually make it really, really hard to be generous and to be curious. So I would think about what could we do to kind of create that? Do we have enough time, or do we have too much pressure around how we have to kind of move through? Do I actually have the physical space to connect? Do I have the opportunity to kind of connect and to do this around, and when and how? So looking for those kinds of opportunities, I think, so we could actually create our own culture that actually would be supportive of our connection. So it's great to kind of think about, where are the places that I actually do this? Because we probably, I want us to kind of pay attention, we probably do. And then what are the barriers and threats that are actually impacting us? How could we actually support our curiosity there? Thank you for that. Yes, I see one and then two. Yeah.
So your title was about, I can use this too. Your title was about belongingness and brotherhood. So I'm wondering if you could speak either or both on anything in the research about the gendered nature of forming kind of a sense of belongingness, or even stereotypes that people might have about ways that belongingness might be gendered that the data just don't support.
Yeah, so I would have to kind of say that I'm going to lean upon the expertise of actually this group around what it means in the context of men and masculinity. The data, number one, is lacking and far behind in terms of actually paying attention to men in this space. So there's that one. Number two, much of what we're kind of relying upon is based on off of stereotypes and doesn't really move us forward. But the one kind of piece of data that I will share, and it's a piece of data that I've been kind of sharing with folks here, is a recent study that's been done by More in Common and Fox Sports News, which finds that folks who are more directly engaged in sports have higher civic engagement. And they also are more likely to vote, more likely to have strong connection with others and others who are politically different than them, more likely to believe that we can connect across our differences. So this was a result that was actually somewhat surprising, in part because it was mostly about men. And it was also about how folks were identifying that this was a space that people could connect. So I want to defer to the brotherhood invitation was a language that you all kind of gave me, but I want to defer upon the expertise that you all have around it and admit that our field is lacking with really, really paying attention to some of those kinds of issues and struggles. So I don't know if you have thoughts about it, but it'd be a great place that I'd like to learn as well. Yeah, I see a hand. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, let me see if I kind of understand what you're saying, and I have a big reaction to it, which is I don't think it's wrong for people to be sucked into social media because, every reel has 10,000 people trying to get me to stay longer. It is socially engineered for me to stay. And so I actually worry about when people feel bad about being tricked by multi-million, billion-dollar agencies that are organized to catch my attention. Me just fighting that on my own and feeling bad about it isn't cognizant of the multi-billion-dollar industry that has been organized to use psychologists and psychology to keep you online. So I can go way off about that. But so I don't think it's an invitation for us to feel bad about it. I understand. Also, when the algorithm is organized to make me feel like I belong, to give me exactly the information that I'm kind of looking for, to show me exactly me, the algorithm is kind of a trick to make us feel like we belong. So I think it's compelling. We have to understand that we are being sucked in and being used in those kinds of ways. And also, sometimes it's okay to have a break, right? But we have to kind of think about, I'm not a big person around shaming us for being compelled by things that catch our attention, if that kind of makes sense. And it's compelling to me, like we have to find spaces where we can find ways to kind of work together and connect. And that might be through sports, or it might be through other team, or it might be for, like on my way to learn something. But let me put it this way. I'm going to tell you about a quick study. I serve on an advisory panel to YouTube Kids, where basically my job is to tell YouTube Kids, this is terrible. So I often do that. But we actually found that part of the research was the two groups of folks: people who felt bad about using social media and people that felt meh about it. You took the same group of people and had them watch social media for 20 minutes, and we have this little calculator that we have about their mood. Okay, during it, yes, it's kind of funny, it's okay. They can have high ratings, but the people who felt like I shouldn't be doing this, afterwards felt worse and felt worse longer. Even though what they were seeing made them feel okay. The people that felt meh about it didn't feel worse afterwards and didn't have some of the negative effects around it. So it's your approach to it. So I'm not saying that you should spend 19 hours on social media and feel meh about it. I'm just saying that when we spend so much time shaming people for not fighting algorithms that are organized to trick our brain, I don't think we're helping folks out either. But that's me throwing a whole lot of shade. But we could be in kind of conversation about it. Yes, I see one more hand. Yeah. 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 Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question is, like, how can we kind of break the habit that we have of going to the people that we kind of feel like we belong to? I'm going to say yes and. Spend some time and then try to connect outside the group. Right? It's a little bit of both. Like sometimes I need a place to kind of rest and be kind of in that kind of space. And then I better get enough rest to go try it with somebody else. Right? And to ask these kinds of questions, ask any kind of questions to find if there are other kind of similarities. The problem is when we only rest on one group. Right? And when we only rest on kind of one group, then our perceptions about the other group often get reified as negative. Right? So we often think that fundamental attribution bearer, oh, they're a bunch of jerks. I never liked them anyway. So we end up kind of getting further and further in a negativity. So we have to find opportunities to kind of get out. But it's okay to rest. It's the yes and. It's okay to find places of belonging so that I can get, supported and fill my cup so I can go ahead and try the next person, try it out. Yes?
All right, I was going to say something about me personally, what I found an observation is, because I want to do a Black Studies minor, so I'm also in a lot of classes that involve writing and talking to each other in Socratic discussion. But especially in STEM classes, and I'm a computer science major, aspiring computer science major, it feels like in STEM classes, a lot of those are lectures and not really group-based. So I feel like that sense of belonging is almost kind of shifted out for more of a competition-based dog-eat-dog world. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about it? Mm-hmm. I don't want to assume things. I think you're a humanities major, correct?
Mm-hmm. I'm a psychologist, yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
yep.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so let me think about it kind of this way. I think part of it is thinking about kind of like big classes, different classes, competition. Do you enter into space like where we've actually predicated on you don't belong, look to your left, look to your right, one of y'all not gonna be here. Like that's an invitation for not around kind of belonging, right? So we actually know that those things don't help with learning, that type of competition does not sustain us. And it's actually not something that actually translates well in terms of our learning and ability. But there are things that we can do in any class, like know each other's names. Right? Or hold expectations for us to kind of communicate with each other. The storytelling we kind of do. We can think about all of these things that help with belonging, help with learning. right? They help kind of lower the threshold of my anxiety so I can engage in the material. So if I keep on coming into class and they still don't know my name, then I don't really feel like I'm kind of connected here. And I know that's a chat, I'll admit, like that's a chat, thank goodness for me, because I teach remotely via Zoom, so I can see as long as you got your name up, I can say your name, right? But I'm gonna have to try to make the effort. I'll give you another example. I'm from Hawaii. Our names in Hawaii are complicated. My Hawaiian name is Pua'ali'i Okalani. It has 2 glottal stops, right? So what ends up happening in Hawaii a lot is people will be like, I can't say that, I'll call you Allison. And so I worked with a school in Hawaii where what we did is we had each kid say their name, and it shows up on the roll. So before I get there to class, I can hear the kids say, Pua'ali'i Okalani, and I can practice, and I can try it. And I can mess it up, but at least I can try. So there are things that we can do in effort, and that's in a school that's actually highly competitive in all these different ways. There are things that we can do in Signal, even in this kind of competitive space that we belong. So I saw Sarah jump up. I am way over your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Briscoe-Smith. And for students in the room, Dr. Briscoe-Smith is going to have open office hours tomorrow in the library. So if you have a strategy you want to talk about, if you have a question that didn't get answered, we have reserved from 2:30 to 4, so it kind of spans that one, that opportunity. Tomorrow in the library in the 1832 brew area, and you get a good enough question, there might be like a drink at the brew for you.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's your incentive, but really this opportunity. So please join me again in thanking Dr. Briscoe-Smith.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, and there's those sheets are on the outside, but thank you so much for hosting such a wonderful opportunity for me to connect. Please collect those sheets on the way out so you can keep on practicing. Thank you.